Hi everyone and welcome! Today I would love to share with you how to quickly and easily create the basic bodice and sleeve block pattern for knitted fabrics for women, men and children. We have already learned how to trace the basic skirt slopper for knits, and in another episode we will work on the trousers block. Then, by putting these different blocks together, creating every design we wish for will be a breeze. It will only require to add stylistic elements and to change the length, the fit and the ease. Of course, keep in mind that these blocks work with stretchy materials only and that the elasticity percentage is to be considered. Our basic bodice can be obtained in different ways. Constructed from the basic block with darts for woven fabrics, traced on paper from our own measurements, draped on a dress form of our size, bought from a pattern company and modified to fit our own shape perfectly. Finally, obtained by duplicating a perfectly fitted garment from our own wardrobe. I believe that the very best technique to obtain a true block for knits is draping, but I know that you are very few to actually have a dress form to your own exact measurements. Therefore, we will practice draping only after learning how to prep a dress form. In the meantime, I suggest we learn how to properly clone a well-fitted garment from our own wardrobe. But let me reassure you, we are not going to hastily fold a t-shirt in half and vaguely trace the contours. We are going to learn how to transform the standard block of ready-to-wear fashion into a true tailor-made block with properly modified seams and notches. And bonus, this technique can be used to make the basic bodice block and sleeve for women, men, or for a child, depending on the piece of clothing you will choose to work with. Finally, to end this very long introduction, it goes without saying that these blocks, once they are made, are to be kept dearly to create future designs. Keep them as dearly as your pearls and other jewels. And don't worry, the latter might be the only one to disappear should your houses be visited without your consent. Alright, no more mindless chit-chat, let's get to work. I picked in my wardrobe this long-sleeved t-shirt whose fit and elasticity I really enjoy. It's constructed out of 3 different pieces, the front, the sleeve and the back, and we will duplicate them. I highly recommend working on a pinnable padded tablecloth, which will allow the little teeth of the tracing wheel to easily go through the fabric and mark the paper, on top of which we are now going to place our garment with the wrong side out. Don't overstretch it, but pin it perfectly flat, smooth and nice to the tablecloth. And don't worry about the wrinkles formed here, we are focusing on the bust shape at the very moment. And when everything is properly pinned, we are going to look for the middle of the garment. With a ruler, measure and mark the middle of the bottom hem and do the same here. Then join both marks to trace the middle front line, which, by the way, is also the middle back line. Now, with the tracing wheel, trace this middle line, the hem line, the side line, the front armhole, the shoulder line, the front neckline, without forgetting the back neckline and the secretly hidden back armhole line over here. By the way, in case you are wondering, when doing a pattern, only half of the bust is traced, half of the front and half of the back. The other halves are obtained by symmetry, at least for a basic slopper. Do be careful to trace the contours by walking the tracing wheel on top of the seams so as to obtain a true block, which is a pattern without seam allowance. It will be added later on a case-by-case basis, depending on the chosen design and the elasticity percentage of the fabric. Here I just lifted the sleeve up to access the armhole's backline, and even if the speeded up footage is slightly frantic, take your time, it is a delicate place. Now add a little construction mark on the sleeve and mark it on the bust piece at the exact same level. And even though I forgot to film it, do the same on the back. So we have traced the middle, the bottom hem, the side, the front armhole, the shoulder, the front neckline, the back neckline, the back armhole. We have construction marks on the front and on the back. Good job, everyone! You are allowed to rest a little bit. Let's put our paper on the side for a minute and focus on the sleeve now. We will need to fold a piece of paper lengthwise and pin the sleeve on top of it. For better accuracy, make sure to pick the sleeve whose side we just duplicated. Now the process is quite similar. We are going to retrace the shape following the seam in order to not add the seam allowance to our block. And don't forget to mark the construction marks as well, front and back. Don't be surprised, the shape of the back armhole is slightly more rounded than the front, if you're working with a well-designed t-shirt, of course. Sometimes fitted t-shirts that you get from the store come with a perfectly symmetrical sleeve shape. The elasticity of the fabric makes up for this little imperfection that is no big deal in this very situation. But anyway, let's learn how to draw these lines properly, and we will avoid annoying repercussions later on while using this block. We are now going to true up the block, which means retracing every line nicely and smoothly and making sure that the pieces match together. I will use a L square, a terribly useful transparent ruler, a variform curve and a large French curve. To anticipate your questions, I placed a link for every tool that I used in this tutorial in the description box below the video. Following the little holes made by the tracing wheel, I am going to trace the middle line and the hemline. They should be perpendicular. Now the side with a vari curve, and just below the sleeve at the underarm level, I place my ruler at 90 degrees from the side line and trace a short construction line. I do the same to trace the front and back necklines. Also trace the shoulder line and mark the intersections with the front and the back armholes. I am sorry, I realized that I should have used a colored pen, it would have been easier to see. On the construction line, we'll place a mark at 1 cm in order to leave a little platitude, and then we'll join this point to the shoulder with a French curve. Don't forget to indicate the position of the construction mark. For the armhole's backline, it's the same, but this time we'll leave a platitude of about 1.5 centimeters before redrawing the shoulder line. Don't forget the construction mark either. We will do the same for the back neckline that requires a platitude of about 3 centimeters, and the front neckline where 1.5 centimeters are enough. These platitudes preserve the shape of the lines when the different pieces of the pattern are placed together. I decided to quickly raise the position of my front neckline since I find the t-shirt I am working with too open on the front for a basic block. You be the judge of what you like and what you want, but don't forget to cross out any obsolete line. So to sum up, here we have the front piece of the block, and here is the back, whose shape we are now going to cut out. And without further ado, we are going to redraw the back, construction marks included, and to cut it out as well. Now, to have both pieces of the block ready, front and back, we need to cut along the front neckline here and the front armhole. Trace the grain line parallel to the sides and write the name of each piece. No time to waste. Let's work on the sleeve, starting with a 90-degree here, preferably, a straight line and a little curve there. And now comes the delicate place, redrawing the front and back armholes line. Using a French curve will definitively make it easier, even though you can just eyeball it if you want, with a little patience and a good eraser. Both ways, don't forget to transfer the construction marks. They will help you greatly later during the construction process of the garment. And now, keeping both layers of the paper together, cut the sleeves shape out, following the curvier armholes line. This one here. Open the sleeve, draw the middle line, which is also the grain line, and go on cutting the shape of the front armhole right after you have transferred the construction mark for the back on the back side of the sleeve. And just for the sake of nitpicking, a little platitude on the head of the sleeve will make things impeccable. And voila, dear friends, now that we have warmed up, it is time to take things to the next level. If you have a dress form, wake it up, otherwise just put your t-shirt on, wrong sides out, and tie a string or an elastic to your waist. Measure the length between the neckline and your waistline where the elastic lies and transfer it to the front piece of the block. If, like me, you raised the neckline up, make sure to add the amount of the raise as well. Now square and trace the waistline on the front and at the same level on the back. These are construction lines and they will allow us to associate top and bottom blocks together. The real waist shape will be traced in the last part of the video. The line running from apex to apex is called the chest or the bust line. Place a ruler where it crosses the middle line and measure the distance from the bust line to the waistline. Oh, and by the way, by apex I mean the tip of your nipple. So let's take the opportunity as well to measure how far apart they are placed. On our block now, from the waistline up, we just have to transfer the first measurement to square and trace the bust line. And on this same line now, we can mark the position of the apex. Just divide by 2 the width found between both apexes. Transfer this bust line on the back block as well. This construction line might come in handy quite soon over here, since summer is finally upon us and backless dresses are about to come out again. I would love to show you now a very useful little trick for when you wish to use this basic block for sleeveless designs. You can easily take in about 5 to 6 millimeters on both sides of the armholes. Trace the new line and cut it out. The bust will then be slightly tighter under the arm, preventing the fabric from gapping inelegantly in a place where it has a tendency to be distended since it has been cut in the bias. Now let's focus on the shoulder seam. Most of the shirts bought in retail stores have a front and a back of identical length, yet we all have a longer back armhole compared to the front. Therefore, if this physical specificity isn't taken into consideration during the drafting process, the shoulder seam will end up slightly misplaced further on the back side. So let's trace together the real shoulder seam on our garment, as well as the matching construction mark on the sleeve. If you're working on yourself, here is a good time to ask for help, and maybe you might consider tailor's chalk instead of a sneaky and well-sharpened needle. Some pattern cutting books suggest to move this line from 1.5 to 1.8 centimeters towards the front. The truth is that we are all different, hence the beauty of tailor-made garments. Let's measure the difference on the front neckline and the armhole line and redraw our true shoulder line. And of course, we will have to make a new construction mark for the head of the sleeve. To sum up, we have traced our construction lines for the waist and for the bust. We have the apex position, we have indicated the name of each piece and traced the grain lines. We have traced an optional sideline for sleeveless designs, placed both front and back construction marks, and finally we have traced the true shoulder line. On the sleeve we have also indicated the front and the back, the construction marks, the middle line / grain line, and finally a second construction mark in case we wish to use the modified shoulder line option in the future. So here is the back, the front and the sleeve, such as they are found in ready-to-wear fashion. Bravo! Congratulations! This block is to be kept safely and dearly. It will be very useful to create t-shirts of every shapes and designs, dresses, swimsuits, jumpsuits, and so on. So once again, to be kept safely and dearly. If you feel like staying a little bit longer with me, you will discover in the last part of this video how to transform the standard ready-to-wear slopper we just obtained into an almost tailor-made block. On the menu, the shape of your real waistline, your real shoulder line, a broader front and a narrower back. What do you need? A duplicated version of the basic standard block you just created with me, since the original is to be kept in a safe place. Alright, everyone's ready? Let's get started by identifying the real shape of our own waistline. We are going to put our t-shirt on again, wrong sides out, walk and move a little bit to have the elastic position itself at the right place, our natural waistline, which we are now going to trace, half front and half back. To do that, we have several options. Redraw the line with pins. Be careful not to stick yourself. Trace the waistline with a thread and a needle, and in that case, make sure to give your stitches some ease, otherwise they might break when you remove the t-shirt from the dress form or yourself. Finally, tailor's chalk is a very convenient option if you're working on yourself, and in that case, I highly recommend you to ask for help, especially to trace the back. Then remove the garment, lay it perfectly flat, pin both layers together to prevent the fabric from moving around, and thread trace your front waistline, making sure to sew both layers at once. And surprise, surprise, this line is not straight, it's curved, just like us. You may well have something even curvier. Now let's discover what's going on the other side. The tailor's chalk line is the back waistline. The red thread line is the front waistline we just drew. And here is the line we traced on the standard ready-to-wear block. The difference is quite huge, especially in my case, because my back is quite arched. So after you have also thread traced this line, we are going to place our garment on the padded tablecloth with some paper in between. I trace the middle line as well as the side width. Then I trace the shape of the back waist, which is in white, and of the front waist, which is the red line. A quick pencil stroke will make things easier for you to see, I hope, and then we are going to transfer those lines on the block and to true them, starting with the back. So place both middle front marks on top of each other. Even though we are working on the back in the standard ready-to-wear block, the middle is placed at the same level on the front and on the back. Check that the width matches, and if so, trace your real waistline on the paper with the tracing wheel. Once again, a few pencil strokes for visibility purposes. And we are going to true everything up nicely, starting with a little platitude at the middle back. Then, with the French curve or a vari curve, our job is to try to make a line as smooth as possible and also as faithful as possible to the clumsy line that we have to guide us. And here as well, a little platitude will allow perfect connection between the different pieces of the block. We just have to do the same for the front piece, and we will get a block with our true waistline shape, a waistline that is different for each and every one of us. But nobody is exempted to double check that the side lengths are identical for a perfect matching of the front and the back. Let's see now what to do with our block if we wish to use the modified shoulder line. It's very easy, we have already done most of the work. Tape both shoulders edge to edge and add a little piece of paper there to redraw a smooth neckline with a French curve, for instance. Then we can simply cut the true shoulder line that we already looked for, measured and traced, as well as the new neckline curve, and basically that's all there is to do. Bravo! We have a shorter front and a longer back as should be. And final effort, I promise, increasing the width of the front and decreasing the back accordingly. The idea is quite simple. We are going to move the side line from 1 cm towards the back, the way it's being done in haute couture, and purely for the look of it. This way, when seen from the front, the side seam will be almost invisible since it's been moved further away towards the back. Let's add 1 cm to the front and remove it from the back. And since it's always easier to remove compared to adding, we shall warm up with the back. I love this transparent ruler so very much. Taking in 1 cm on the side becomes a piece of cake. Now have a look for the front. We need to add paper and redraw the side line 1 cm further away. Did I mention that I love this ruler? Following existing lines extend the waist and the bust line. Now measure this distance here on the back piece and transfer it on the new front line. You will be able to complete the shape of the armhole. My friends, before I bid you farewell, let's have the final snips of the scissors, a very last check of the sides length. They should be identical, and we are done for today. No, wait, a little detail. Since we moved the side seam on the bust, we could do the same on the sleeve. Or we can decide to leave it like this and to not be bothered by the slightly misaligned seams under the arm. After all, we are free to decide the look of our own wardrobes, but in any case, don't forget to align the sleeve head with the correct construction mark. And this time it really is the end. You now have a standard ready-to-wear slopper to your size, as well as a quasi-tailored made block. Keep them warm, we will use them shortly. Thank you so much for your presence, your kindness and support, and for all the lovely messages I received. I do try my best to answer everyone, but please forgive me if one of them escapes my attention. Bye bye! À bientôt!